What's going on, everybody? Mortem here, this time bringing you my next 7 reviews. A video I like to make every couple of months just to let people know what I'm up to, what I'm working on. And while the beginning of 2023 was very packed with a lot of releases, March and April are looking to be quite a bit quieter, with the next big game release being towards the end of April. And as always, in periods like those, I like to go back and review older titles that I either haven't played or just haven't covered, etc., which is going to be most of what the next several weeks, roughly 7, are all about. Now, as always, an indie title or two might come out of left field that I didn't know about, etc., and I might take time to cover it, but broadly speaking, this is what we're looking at for the next couple of months. Now, first and foremost, I'm going to finish Octopath Traveler 2 and review that, which is a game I've already started. I've made the checkout video for that previously already, after being sent a review copy by Square Enix, and it's a game I would frankly just like to play for myself. While I don't think anyone really needs my review for that, so to speak, I enjoyed the bit I played of it, so I plan on fully reviewing it, as the Octopath Traveler series and its approach to storytelling is somewhat unique as far as JRPGs go, and the stories I've played through thus far really hooked me in, and I'd just like to see the rest of it. But after that, things get a little more vague. I'm not exactly sure what order I'll be covering these in from here, but these are the games we are looking at. For starters, we're finally going to wrap up the Gothic series with Gothic 3, the seemingly polarizing final entry to the Gothic series, and admittedly, I don't know a ton about this one, but much like the other Gothic entries, it's my understanding you do have to get some patches and things to get this working properly, which will certainly feature as part of that review, which is likely to be more of a retrospective. And then Gothic 3 also received a standalone expansion by a different studio known as Forsaken God, so I'll also have to decide how I want to cover that. But after enjoying Gothic 1 and 2 a great deal, I'm very interested in seeing what is going on with Gothic 3 and why people are so on the fence about it one way or the other generally. Though speaking of games by Piranha Bytes, I'll also be covering Risen 2, another somewhat polarizing title in the Risen series, as it's my understanding that game took it in the direction of firearms and pirates, which was not exactly the theme of the first game by any stretch, but I've heard mixed things about this one. I've heard some people say that they enjoy it because of how much different it is from a lot of everything else Piranha Bytes has done, and I've also heard people say they kind of hated it because nothing it did really seemed to work with the rest of their games either. So naturally gonna have to play this one for myself and see where it goes, but certainly curious about it one way or the other. Then next up we have Bioshock 1, a very popular title that I'm sure needs no introduction, but I've never played it, and I'd like to play through the Bioshock series before the game Judas comes out later this year, provided it doesn't get delayed, as that game is supposed to be a sort of spiritual successor to the Bioshock series is my understanding, so I'd like to check out some of the originals before that game drops to have something to compare it to properly, as again, I've never played Bioshock, but people sing that franchise's praises, so I'm very curious about it. Then we have Geneforge 1. I do have a soft spot for old school CRPGs, and at this point I've covered basically all the prominent ones. Some of the more notable ones that have been missing though are the Spiderweb Software ones, which is primarily Geneforge and Avernum, so I'd like to close that gap and kind of get those out of the way. But nonetheless, I am looking forward to those because that is my favorite genre of gaming if you've been with the channel for a while. But both Geneforge and Avernum both have like 5 or 6 entries, and I'm curious to see how the mechanics evolve over that many games because that seems like a lot. But nonetheless, that brings us to our next entry, and this is The Witcher 2. Now, The Witcher 2 is an interesting one like the other Witcher games because, as I mentioned in my review of the first one, I have played every Witcher game to death. I just haven't covered them previously. So I started with the first one this year in terms of covering it on the channel, but The Witcher 2, the only thing I never actually finished for this game was the achievement for playing through on insane difficulty, I think it was called, and to be honest with you, it's been so long ago I don't even remember the specifics of it, but beyond that, I've done everything else. I've seen all 16 of the endings, etc. So I'm very familiar with this game, but I would like to do a review of it for the channel, while at the same time taking the time to go back and try to wrap up the last, I think, 3 achievements I don't have for that game, which again, something for my own personal enjoyment if nothing else, as I'm curious to see how this game holds up to my memory of it. And then last but certainly not least, we have The Ascent, a cyberpunk action RPG from 2021 that received pretty positive reviews if I remember correctly. And I like a good ARPG every once in a while, but The Ascent is set in a pretty impressive cyberpunk locale, is my understanding. So I'm curious to see all of that, and then just the ARPG systems themselves, how in-depth they are, etc. Because basically this is a game that passed me by at the time it was released simply because I was busy with other stuff, and now that I've got some free time, I'd like to jump into it and actually play the title for myself. But that is pretty much going to wrap it up for my next series of reviews. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you're looking forward to any of these, do like, comment, subscribe, all that YouTube jazz. But regardless of any of that, truly, thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. May you wander in wisdom and have an amazing day.